Welcome back to Pittman and Friends podcast, and I am here with my friend, Dr. Shawn Ashworth. And I was trying to think of what title to use, and there were so many. I'm not even going to give you a title. You can title yourself, but we will get into what many of your titles are. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to have fun. We had a little conversation before this, and it went on for a long time. We could talk for hours.
Yes.
But let me start with, most people know that you were with Anne Arundel County Public Schools for 31 years. We said that together. That's pretty good. That's a long time. So why don't you first tell us how you got where you are? You're a doctorate. Tell us about what your doctorate is in, what your career has been like in Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and what you decided to do when you retired.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you a funny story. I went to college to be a physical therapist, and my mother said, you need to take some education classes just in case. And I'm like, education? I'm not doing that. I'm not backing up. And here we are, 31 years I completed with Anne Arundel County Public Schools, started out as a special education teacher. And I feel like 5 years.
And your doctorate was in education, right?
Educational leadership.
Okay.
Yes, got my master's in school counseling, got some certifications in drug prevention counseling. I'm also a practicing therapist. So I've done a little bit of everything. And the joke in Anne Arundel County is I've done every role except school psychiatrist. I've been a PPW. I've been a principal of a comprehensive school, alternative school. I've been an assistant principal. I've been a pupil personnel work. I've worked in the equity office.
Okay. Those are some of the most important positions.
Yes. So I've worked a number of jobs, and I think that's what led me to work in the community.
All right. But right now, your main focus is Brooklyn Park.
Yes.
Tell us about Brooklyn Park.
I love Brooklyn Park. Brooklyn Park became on my radar as I was working with Anne Arundel County Public Schools. It was one of the schools, one of the areas that I supported. And I think it was COVID when I realized there weren't a whole lot of people.
I warned you I might interrupt you, and
Please.
You're going to interrupt me, I hope. But the interruption is just for people who are listening who don't know where Brooklyn Park is. It is the northern end of Anne Arundel County, and it's got some of the highest levels of poverty.
High levels of poverty, high arrest rates. We're doing some work there with enough. And just a population of people that I'm going to say are at hope. And they need people, organizations to provide them assistance to help them realize their hope for themselves, for their families, and in that community. And so I've been there since 2018, right after COVID, serving. I always tell people I fill a 26-footer up of food, clothes, toys, toiletries, a whole lot of purposeful partners, and go down and serve there in that community, Park Elementary, right next to Brooklyn Park Library, and with a grant and some enough funding. Now I'm there every Wednesday doing Wellness Wednesdays, bringing programming to parents and families. And
so you created an organization called Food for Thought.
Yes. And that's Food for Thought Community Outreach Services.
And the 4 is an actual number 4.
The number 4, and it stands for what I hope to eventually get to, but it's housing, health and nutrition, counseling, and jobs. Yes. You remembered.
I remember. Well, I wrote it down. I had housing, health, food, and jobs.
That's
but
it.
The simple.
Yes, that's it. That's what the 4 stands for.
And it's Brooklyn Park based, and particularly working within the schools, right?
Yes, working with the community schools. I love our community schools, and I love my community manager at Park Elementary.
Now I'm going to do another interruption, which is community schools for people who don't know what that is. That is a program really that was set up as part of the blueprint for education, but something that's been done in different ways across the country and even here in Maryland, where schools with the highest levels of poverty, we've increased the numbers. You can tell me how many, if you remember, how many community schools designated in Anne Arundel County we now have. But the purpose is to really connect the school as a local institution, as a government institution within community.
They are the hub.
They are the hub.
They are the hub of the community.
And to not only serve the students, but also their whole families.
Absolutely. They are the hub. We're probably up to 40-something community schools. Park Elementary is one of the elementary schools that has the highest amount of poverty. And I'm there because I want to help. That's a community in need. And so, we're doing some great things at Park Elementary School, and really for all of Brooklyn Park. When Food for Thought goes in and serves, we serve the entire community. It's not just Park Elementary School. Anybody, and I believe there's 5 community schools in Brooklyn Park.
So there's a coordinator in each of those schools
There's
for that
a community
program.
manager in each one of those schools, and each one of those schools has a responsibility to cover so many tenets of health, home, you name it. But the big part of it is to connect with outside resources.
Yes. In the community, in county government.
In the county government
Yeah.
as well, yes.
And Dr. Bedell would be very upset with me if I did not point out, you get what you pay for. And the test scores in the community schools of Anne Arundel County have increased at a higher rate than overall test scores. Everybody,
You know why? Because what I love about community schools is it allows their budget allows to bring in those extra resources and student services and tutors and mentors and social services positions to support families. And so when that happens, then there's an effort for those families to get their kiddos to school, because now I want to be there. Now I feel comfortable. And that's what I love about what we're doing on Wellness Wednesdays. We're getting about 55 people out every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday they're coming out. And why? Because they want to be a part of community.
So what do they do when they get there?
Well, it depends on which Wednesday they come. First Wednesday, we have Chef Sam, so you can come out and learn some healthy cooking and we get to eat. Second Wednesday, we have someone coming in and doing salsa dancer or ballroom dancing. Third Wednesday,
salsa dancing.
Oh, look, we having fun too, and line dancing.
Well, I know, because I was in a Latin dance competition at Maryland Hall. It was one of the scariest performances I ever did. Yeah, I took classes. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
I'm not much good at it, but
it's a lot of fun. The families are having a ball. Our instructor, Mr. Kevin, is doing a phenomenal job. We just started boxing this month, so we have someone coming in and doing box. Okay, politically correct, self-defense.
I shouldn't be talking about myself, but that just brought back a memory. My dad sent me to a boxing class when I was a little kid, and I like punching things like with gloves. And I remember getting for Christmas one of those little things where you punch it; it's on a spring. But he sent me to boxing class, and after one class, I said, "I don't like this."
Well, the families in Brooklyn are loving it. The kiddos are loving it, and then we have yoga, and then what we have begun to do is, since we have such a wonderful large audience of families, we are starting to insert workshops for families. So last month we had Chesapeake Arts Center. They came in and they did something for 25 kids while the parents listened to an ACEs presentation.
So what is ACEs?
ACEs is a training on adverse childhood experiences, and it really enlightens people. And what I saw in the Brooklyn Park families, some ahas, right? You never realize that, oh yes, I had alcohol going on in my family. There was abuse. You kind of just, those things happen, and you either do well or you don't, or you settle somewhere in between. And so it was a really great presentation. Our families had some really good feedback about it as well. And so what we're trying to do, since we have a concentrated number of families coming, is to bring resources to them. And so next Wednesday, I have someone coming in. She is a gastroenterologist. And so we're bringing like those people in. We've had UMUC come in and do a flu clinic. Any resource that I believe, or not even I think, I'm just trying to get our families aware of what's happening in our county and what supports they have access to.
Okay.
And want them to know that they have access to, so we're bringing it to them.
Okay, so we're in Brooklyn Park. We're working in the school system. We're working with community schools. We've got your organization that provides services as well. And then comes Governor Moore, who says we need to confront poverty in communities in a targeted way where we engage the residents and engage all of the local institutions and then invest in the solutions and opportunity.
Yes.
So that is called Enough, and tell us what you know about that.
Enough to me is what I love to say is purposeful partners, because that's what it is. It's taking all of those government entities, those community organizations, churches, all kinds of folks and bringing them together and doing a consorted sort of purposeful partner effort to bring all of those resources and opportunities for families. And so our very own Dr. Brown, Pam Brown, and the partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, they serve as the quarterback. And Food for Thought Community Outreach serves as one of the lead nonprofits in this work. So a lot of the work I'm doing in Brooklyn is also enough work. It's engaging families and creating opportunities for them to support.
And I know Brooklyn Park is the lead one where we've gotten the most resources from the state and fought like you know what to get it. But we also have in West County and Indianapolis, we have enough groups that are starting, and hopefully they will
get some money
to the point where they'll
get. Yes. And we're
I just want to say that I was so excited to see this because one of the reasons, or one of the things I was excited about was having a governor who worked for the Robin Hood Foundation, which invested in anti-poverty solutions. And so my hope was that as governor, that there's not the kind of resources we'd all hoped, but take that knowledge and that commitment and put something together. And I've Dr. Brown's been around a long time, and she doesn't get excited about new stuff often because it's you know how it is. Oh yeah, it's all been tried.
It's all been tried.
Yeah. But on this, I don't think it's just that she's excited about the approach. She's excited about what y'all have done in Brooklyn Park.
Impact and action. Those are my two favorite words. And that's what we're doing in Brooklyn. We are impacting the community with actionable projects that we've all been working on. And there's a lot of us in Brooklyn, a lot of TCP, there's a lot of other nonprofits that are doing work as well.
Yeah, so you're one of the people at the table who's one of the stakeholders that is moving things forward.
Yes, we're doing a phenomenal job. You got Cheryl Menendez. You've got lots of great people who are, whether it's housing, homelessness, youth, community, you got it. We are trying to cover, and now we're trying to address early childhood, trying to get some childcare over at Lord Keyser, because it's not just Brooklyn, it's Brooklyn and Pumphrey. So we're trying to get some traction over there as well in some program.
Okay, I'm looking at a slide here, and this slide was from Dr. Brown's budget presentation, which was last week, where they come and they ask for things in the budget, and she was talking and sort of educating us all about enough in Brooklyn Park and the things that are. And she had also told us, and I was very interested in this, and I've written about it in my weekly letter, this idea that we're always trying to get investment of capital. There's a lot of money in this world and in this country. We all know where he's way up at the top, and if we can convince that capital that communities like Brooklyn Park are a wise investment, then we start to solve a lot of problems. And I know that she's been working with the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and a group about flourishing. And now there's this one slide that's part of it, and the slide's titled "From Crisis to Flourishing: The 2-Gen Brooklyn Park Pilot Roadmap." Does that ring a bell?
It does. And that is all about supporting families with a stipend for housing or some sort of monthly stipend for families to rise above their circumstances and to get out of the I just have enough, and to use that money to save and or to put it into some housing and support.
Yeah, I've got this roadmap. It looks like a board game, the slide, and it starts with crisis, immediate instability, and then it goes to intake and assessment where goals are set, and then case management with identifying resources and coordinate financial requirements and wealth infrastructure, making a plan. And then there's the financial glide path where they start with assistance and start to have a plan to become self-sufficient.
It's all about accountability.
Yeah, and then there's the 2-gen momentum, 2-generation, where they're working with the children as well as
it's the whole family. Yes.
Yeah, and then there's the childcare voucher. So that the family, there can be a breadwinner.
Yes. Somebody can go to work and then have some decent, cost-efficient childcare.
Yep. And the things that they track are housing stability, economic growth, and school attendance. That sounds to me like
impact
something
and action.
worth doing. Yeah. And I know that they've got families already in it through the partnership.
Yes.
Yeah. At the same time, you're working at the global level in the community to get investment.
Here's the thing about nonprofit, Enough, and all the partnership and all the work that we're doing in our community is to really sit back and say, how do we help our families to be more sustainable? We can go in and give. But what's the true impact? The true impact is being able to see family A pay their bills every month, not necessarily not get on one of the food lines, but to limit the amount of times they have to get on the food lines. What I hear out on the streets is they're at the pantry because they need the free food or the free diapers so that they can put money in their home, gas in their car, pay the insurance. And so what Dr. Brown and what we're talking about with the 2Gen is really not just giving, but teaching our families how to be economically stable. And that's the key. That's the important. Give, but we got to teach them. We got to teach them how to make it work for themselves.
You know, it's funny, you hear people say, well, you know, poverty is a choice. You know, people just got to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Well, the system is set up so that it's really, you know, you just... we all want people to be able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and be independent and have wealth and all of those great things. And everybody wants that for themselves.
Absolutely.
And so
sometimes our system is the setup. It's the bureaucracy in the rules, in the laws, in the you got to have this before you can have that.
And sometimes the system is even the government programs are you know, so hard to get through.
Yes.
I mean, people spend so much time just trying to navigate the system. And and so hopefully by doing this effectively, we can come up with the solutions, the things that need to get fixed in the system as well.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Let's cut the bureaucracy.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like, looking at you and your life and your career, that you didn't retire.
I'm rewired.
You rewired? Okay.
Yes.
You found the place, or you had the freedom maybe to be able to step out and find the place where your skills were most useful.
I remember growing up living in the projects in New York. And so I knew what that was like. And then, of course, I went to school and learned all this great stuff. And, you know, I actually started really doing this work here in Arundel County, is feeding people at BWI Airport. And when COVID closed, I was doing that 3 years in a row, 11 o'clock at night with volunteers, bringing them food, the iPad to write their resume, the button-down shirts for them to go on their resume. At BWI Airport, I don't like to, you know, broadcast that loud because there were many nights where our law enforcement would tell us we couldn't be there. And I'm like, as long as people are there and they're hungry, I'm going to be there. And so I was for 3 straight years, 125 people every Thursday night. And then COVID hit.
Were some of those people who worked at the airport?
Some of those people worked at the airport. So I had I have a VA friends who would twice a month make a hot meal. And I would take that along with the snack bags and the socks and the shirts and everything they asked and go up. And then when COVID hit and the airport closed, that's what took me to Brooklyn. I was like, I know where I'm going. Everyone is going to Annapolis, tumbling over each other. I'm going to go to Brooklyn where there aren't a lot of nonprofits serving. And what I've learned is consistency is what our families need. And that's what I've tried to do with I call them all the purposeful partnerships who joins in with Food for Thought. Because I call everybody, you want to come? You want to set up a table? Sure, come. But we can't do this work alone. We've got to do it in partnership. And we cannot fight for dollars and money to do it by ourselves. We've got to come together and get this work done.
Yeah. And we've got to convince the people. We've got to convince. I spent a lot of time in my earlier career when I was a community organizer going after the banking industry. There was this thing called the Community Reinvestment Act that said that you couldn't redline certain neighborhoods and not invest in them. So we would go after them and use the law and that as a handle to pressure them. And then we would use public pressure. We were out protesting sometimes. But then the next phase was to sit down with them and make friends and introduce them to the investment opportunities.
Yes.
And I was in Des Moines, Iowa, where you could buy a house for $30,000.
Oh, wow.
and the houses weren't in great shape. But we convinced them that the people who would buy those houses were people who were going to pay their mortgage. And actually they did. Those weren't the mortgages that, you know, the ones who got legitimate loans, not from the scammers, but legitimate bank loans. And they got loan counseling and all that. And I feel like that's what we've got to convince the investors, the people with the money, They got
to come out to the neighborhoods to see,
Yeah.
right? They don't. I think that's the missing piece. They stay at the top and they don't come down and walk the neighbors to see, oh, wow, there's poverty here.
There's opportunity here
for us to invest and to grow. And so I would 100% agree. I always say that about all our wonderful, famous stars, people that come from, our local communities. Why they don't come back? How come they don't come back and help board that building and take the boards off the building and create an opportunity for a family to live there?
Yep. Well, I'm glad to see that you're doing that work, and I'm really glad that our government institutions are on board. We actually had a cabinet meeting in my first year in Brooklyn Park, and we wanted all of the departments to be there. And so transportation was there, and we talked about the need for more transit and the needs there, and the school system was there, and the different players. And I feel like, as I'm in my last year, that one of the most important things is for that work to be set up to succeed.
I hope so. Please. We need a community center in Brooklyn.
Well, that's underway.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, and that, so we did a community center in Severn, another high poverty area right next to Mead Village, and then invested in Mead Village and have invested in other things in the area. And I believe that those investments are going to pay off when you look in 5 and 10 years, that the kids who grew up going to that community center are going to be
better off,
more opportunity, more production, more of all those things. And so
if we continue to have leaders like you who are going to put that as a priority.
Well, and that'll only happen if the public cares enough to elect people who have this as a priority. And I feel like COVID actually brought some people to their senses. Like they saw the food lines.
Yes.
And when I was in political science classes, they used to tell me that you don't talk in politics about poor people and poverty. You talk about the middle class because more people are in the middle class, and they're the ones who vote, right? Poor people don't vote. You can't run for office on fighting poverty. Well, I think that's changed.
It has.
I think that all people have a heart, and all people understand. When I go to the bond rating agencies and say that we should be a AAA, that we're a thriving community, I talk about our social safety net and that one of the threats that one must consider, just like climate change and everything else, is poverty to an economy.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed.
It destroys the economy.
Absolutely. Agreed.
So,
And you're right, COVID.
So what's next? What if you think about Brooklyn Park and what you do and you're 5 years out, what do you want to see?
What do I want to see in Brooklyn Park?
What do you think? What do you want to see that you think there's a chance of actually seeing?
Well, definitely I want to see the community center come. What I realize with Wellness Wednesdays, I have families who are coming out just to be a part of community. I have families who may not come and eat or salsa dance, but they're coming because other families are coming, and it's an opportunity to socialize and do things with their kids. So absolutely, we have to have that community center. We absolutely have to have some more transportation and opportunities for our families to get around, low-income housing for our families, and childcare.
Okay.
There are no childcare centers in Brooklyn.
Amen.
And so we need to have that so our people can go and work, make an income, but they need to be able to have some place to take their kiddos.
Okay, now I almost forgot the big part of why I wanted you on here. Because I got so involved in Brooklyn Park. And we got about 6 minutes to do this. So tell us about the Community Reinvestment and Repair Commission that you're on. What is it and what's it doing?
I love the CRRC, the Investment and Repair Commission. That commission was formed, I believe it was maybe now 2 or 3 years ago. Legislation changed.
State
legislation changed, the cannabis legislation. And what that legislation says is all of the sales of cannabis in our state and then dribble down to our county comes back into the counties. And I thought, ooh,
some of the
wonderful.
Tax revenue.
Some of the tax revenue, about 8 or 9%. Last year was the very first year. We gave out about $1.8 million to nonprofits who
in Anne Arundel County.
Just in Anne Arundel County. Wow. They are boots on the ground doing the work. And what we saw was we had 108 applications in our first year. And of course, we had more money requested than what we have, but $1.8 million is a lot of money to do some work. And so we're hoping by the end of this year, we'll be able to see the impact by some of those organizations who reap the benefits. We're in year 2. We just closed another year of applications. And this year we are proposing to give about $3 million out. Again, to organizations, boots on the ground, addressing mental health, housing, homelessness, youth, education, after-school program. And so we are excited.
So where's it going to go?
There was a lot of back and forth in our first year, right? It was money that was supposed to go back to those communities that were impacted on the war on drugs. Well, a lot of folks in those communities moved, right? So how do you figure that out? And one of the things is that we also are looking at the arrests.
We're talking about the impact of war on drugs. Just for people who are listening.
Yes.
We're talking about arrests left, right,
just
and
getting
center,
ready to go
and putting
there.
people, incarcerating
Absolutely.
people for something that is legal now.
Absolutely.
And at least, science and medicine has decided that maybe it shouldn't have been,
such a detriment to the high arrest rates that were happening across our county.
And the communities where most of the highest number of those arrests took place, because police were pulling people over, smelling something, and then throwing them in jail, we're aware.
So we've
Black and brown communities.
Black and brown communities. We've identified zip codes within Anne Arundel County. And it's interesting you say that because we did some public meetings and there were some community people from South County. And they were like, oh, there's a lot of drugs down in South County. Why is that not one of the zip codes? And we had to explain. It's not about do we know if there's a lot of drugs in that particular area, but what were the arrest records? And we're addressing, though, I think we're in about 8 or 9 zip codes within our county. Those areas, again, high Black and brown families and also high arrest in those communities. And so what I love about it is we are providing opportunities for communities, Laurel, Severn, Annapolis, Brooklyn Park, northern part of the county, west part of the county, who normally don't receive funding. I have to say, and even when I was an educator, Annapolis always gets a lot.
And I will say that South County does have high levels of poverty. It does have a lot of these things. The partnerships, but Communities of Hope is in South County.
Absolutely.
Investing.
Yes. But CRC isn't necessarily, I'm going to say yes.
State law was written in a way where
we have to honor state law.
Data.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They don't have the arrest data that supports it.
Okay. So this is serious money.
It's big money. It's impactful money. It can be, right? If the nonprofits who are reaping the benefits, if they do what they say they're going to do.
How the decisions get made? You have all these applications, far more than there are, is money for, because there's a lot of need. We have a committee, right?
We have a commission. We have some commissioners who will be pulling those applications together over the next month and reviewing them. And really what we're looking at is how impactful will that nonprofit, if they're going to go in and do housing or after school programming, how many families are they impacting? How many people are they impacting? The other thing we're looking at is, are you doing some purposeful partnership? You trying to do this work alone, or do you recognize that you are partnering with 3 other organizations because the work you're doing is so important? And with partnering, it expands the opportunity and access for communities to be supported. So I tend to be at a lot of tables. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be on any committee reviewing applications. But I know our commissioners, as they did a year ago, will do it again. And those identified nonprofits who support it will win again.
And we've contracted with ACDS, Arundel Community Development Services.
I love them.
Who also, they do housing and community development, and they do the community support grants.
Yes.
They do the casino money grants, the LDC. And so they're very well set up for managing grant programs. And you've got to do this professionally or else it gets political, right?
Absolutely. And ACDS is absolutely a professional organization that does this work well and has taught me some things in this commission work of what we need. I know some people were sort of fussing about the length of the CRC application and the requirements, especially for some of our newer nonprofits. And, we're going to be looking at that as a commission, but then we also know there are some state regulated where we have to have certain documents, we have to have certain information, and we're going to make sure that we are obeying state laws first. Then we'll look at, let's see where we can get you in.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, as we wrap things up, thank you for engaging in all these things. I know it's mostly volunteer. It's hard. The higher up you go in it, you chair a committee, and then people are yelling at you that you don't like the decision you made and all of those things. And we wouldn't be able to do it without people like you, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the nonprofit sector.
Yes.
Some people don't understand why the government is contracting with nonprofits. Well, the government contracts with for-profits too. The government does things on its own. There's a lot of ways to get things done, and we know that nonprofits are efficient and they're inside the community. So it's really an efficient way to solve these problems, in my view.
We're trying our best. We're trying our best.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you have the last word. And I know exactly what the words are going to be.
Well, you're listening to Pittman and Friends podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button, share with a friend, and join us for the next episode.